Hello!
And welcome back to Party Trick Astrology. I'm Nina.
I'm Shaina.
And this is Lilith in Pisces! Oh my goodness. So if you don't know, we have been doing this Lilith series in sign, house, then sign, then house. So we're really in the final stretch of it all. To know more about Lilith and all of the different Liliths, we also have a video all about that. And in this series, we are focusing on the Black Moon Lilith, which is the true Lilith or the mean Lilith. It sometimes comes up as both. They're really just different ways of calculating the Black Moon Lilith. So if you want to know more about that, check that video out. Check everything out in the description as well to see more from Shaina, more from me. Nina, that's my name.
Also, we renamed this to the Lilith podcast because these are just so long and they really feel more like podcasts. So we just went with it, okay? We gotta go with the flow, just like Lilith and Pisces, okay? I think that's about it for the intro. Yeah, let's get into it. Let's dive in head first here.
Let's talk about how Lilith and Pisces have one thing in common. Neither Lilith nor Pisces knows what boundaries are. Lilith goes to the extreme. Pisces has no bounds. So you can imagine if you've been following along with our series and seeing what Lilith really represents, the obsession, the needing to fulfill desires, the intense cravings for desire that ultimately manifest in self-destruction in one way or another. You can imagine how that energy in the sign of Pisces can really go down the rabbit hole to the extreme. Because Pisces in its more detrimental manifestation can have a lot to do with escapism, addiction, involvement in things outside of reality to the point of losing your grip on reality. When Lilith is in Pisces, the desires that Lilith has is to lose control, which is interesting because Lilith likes to have control, but Lilith likes to have control over you. Lilith likes to get her little claws in you and say, hey, I'm gonna steer the car. We're gonna make it so that you fulfill my desires. But in this case, Lilith's desire is to lose all sense of reality, awareness, and really tap into a deep state of rest almost, an apathy, loss of any sense of individualism or loss of reality in general. So Lilith and Pisces can definitely go to the extremes in that way.
Yes, with Lilith, we always bring up that there is this initial feeling of exile from the sign. Not that you only experience the exile from the beginning. It goes throughout your life, but that's always kind of what kicks it off. And with Lilith in Pisces, there may be kind of an exile feeling, or I think less of an exile and more of like a weird viewpoint of astrology and spirituality, instead of a feeling of, oh, I'm serving this higher power, more of like, what can this higher power do for me? That might have been how religion was shown to you. Or you might have had a really unorthodox way of being brought up within a certain religion. I know somebody with this placement who was brought up in Mormonism, but it wasn't in the classic way, and they didn't follow a lot of rules, but then they followed some rules and didn't follow others, and it can just be very, very confusing to get a clear view of what religion and spirituality means. You might even really turn against religion and spirituality from a young age and want nothing to do with it, or reject the way that it's being shown to you. Or you might have felt ashamed whenever you showed any neediness or even any empathy or any kind of wishy-washiness. Those might have been traits that you felt like you weren't allowed to show. Pisces can sometimes, with Lilith being a little bit more sexual, there might have been an exile of, you know, sexual connection, because Pisces is all about merging and becoming one. And you might have also felt an exile from being taken care of and nurtured properly. And I think this can be why Lilith and Pisces, kind of what Nina was talking about, goes the exact opposite direction. And I kind of see sometimes Lilith and Pisces as being like that damsel in distress, like, oh, I can't deal with this, oh, I need somebody to take care of me, oh, I need to be saved. And that kind of mentality can get Lilith and Pisces into some trouble and some problems for sure.
See, Pisces is such a complex sign, being the very last sign of the zodiac, and really, in some ways, some might say the first sign of the zodiac, because it rules things like prenatal life, before birth, life after death, life before life, this sort of murky realm of possibility and subconscious. So it can feel like oftentimes with the Lilith in Pisces exile that you're actually just so forced into the real world that you don't have time to contemplate deeper spiritual ideals or contemplate your own subconscious. Be at home in yourself, in your own mind. Explore sort of different possibilities, not practical possibilities like Sagittarius of like, I can go here, I can believe this, but rather possibilities of the makeup of the universe or spiritual concepts and such. With Lilith and Pisces, the thirst in combating that exile is to run away, escape from the real world that you were pretty much potentially forced so much into. Because you can be introduced to the sign that Lilith is in through that selfish Lilith lens, you can also understand, like Shaina said, religion or spiritual concepts in a perverted or corrupt way. And so potentially you can feel that in dealing with your subconscious or your spiritual self, you are either in need of taking hold of power through spiritual means, maybe even taking control of your own spiritual narrative in a way that abuses other people or that treads on other people, or you're introduced to the idea of spirituality in Pisces as a victim of those people who exerted their power over you. And so it's interesting, you know, Pisces has really two ends of the spectrum of total synthesis and this loss of ego and transcendence of ego, deep spiritual concepts like that. Or Pisces can very much vibrate on the energy of, I am at the effect of the rest of the world. I am not an individual. I have a weak ego instead of a transcendence of ego, and feeling just a desire to be escaping and pretty much a sense of apathy with how you deal with the rest of the world around you.
Yes, something that I meant to kind of say first off is that this is a really hard Lilith energy to harness. And I think that what a lot of the things that Nina just said, I feel like honestly supports that and makes that evident. We're obviously kicking off this video talking about big concepts and big questions, and it's the 12th sign, and already Lilith can be a little bit of a hard energy to understand and control. And so kind of taking it on a more shallow lens, on a more party trick lens, the way that a Pisces Lilith can sometimes just appear, or you can kind of see it display itself on an everyday basis, is just kind of somebody that's a little bit of a mess, a little bit all over the place. I think of that early 2000s, like pop punk princess, like like what's going on kind of vibe, which I tried to go for, but I feel like my Virgo in the 4th house will never make that happen in the way that I want, but I tried. I feel like you kind of get the vibe. I don't know. This can just kind of sometimes be that like messy drunk girl that always needs to be taken care of. Sometimes Pisces Lilith in a lot of ways, as I mentioned, can kind of enjoy being rendered useless and just kind of like giving it all up, especially giving up responsibility to somebody else or the people around them, because you know in Lilith and Virgo we talked about how there's this desperate clinging on and need for control. With Lilith and Pisces there's this like desperate clinging on and need for being out of control and not dealing with stuff. Like I kind of used it at this example of like, you know, Lilith and Pisces might not really know how to clean and can kind of do that thing of like, I don't know how to sweep, can you show me? And like manipulate you into doing their things for them. And also with Lilith and Pisces, there can be a real like constant search for who you are, and there can be some major identity problems, as there always is with Pisces. And Lilith and Pisces can really fixate and obsess over the fact that they don't know who they are, and they probably will never, because there is that feeling of Pisces of being everything and nothing, and that's something that can really get mixed up in this energy.
Yeah, because ultimately the message that you're hearing from Lilith when your Lilith is in Pisces is lose yourself.
Yeah.
Get out of reality. And when you indulge in that message, you are going to lose that sense of empowerment that comes with feeling like you are responsible for your own life, and that can mess with who you believe yourself to be, who you view yourself to be. Even like the essence of pop punk is, you hurt me, my hometown, it sucks. It's very, you know, victim energy of I'm not responsible for my own happiness. All of these outside things are affecting me. That boy who's a sociopath because he dated another girl right after me. That kind of energy.
Just
angst. Exactly. It's very common to see Lilith and Pisces indulge or crave drugs. And, you know, psychedelics even have a spiritual kind of like brand, if you will, surrounding it. And that idea of transcending the self, transcending the ego. Too much of anything when it comes to Lilith can be detrimental. I mean, I think that honestly, a perfect example of this Lilith and Pisces to, you know, it's not the Lilith podcast if we don't already throw in a celebrity, is Demi Lovato. Demi Lovato has had a long publicized, and I mean, she is a Leo, so naturally it's going to be publicized, history of addiction, detrimental overdoses that severely have impacted her health. And even through all of that, she has demonstrated that she cannot cut herself off from substances. Also, there's things with her identity. Her identity has changed and shifted a lot over the years. She had an eating disorder in which she was very restrictive. That's sort of the exile from that Lilith and Pisces of giving up control and indulging in your, you know, whims, if you will. And her body image affecting her self-perception. It's all very, very Lilith and Pisces.
I want to actually kind of go back, and I actually think that PTSD can be fairly common, or at least I think there is some connection to Lilith and Pisces and PTSD. Not like they're always intertwined, and not that, you know what I mean, it's not like that, but like we both mentioned, Lilith and Pisces has a lot of trouble with dealing with reality and what's happening now and what's happening right in front of them. And so a Lilith and Pisces, I think it can be sometimes more prone to experiencing PTSD around traumatic situations, because they can have the difficulty of accepting what's happening now, and you can instead instead, kind of escape from the trauma that's happening when it's happening, and instead deal with prolonged psychological issues because you have trouble wrapping your head around reality. You have trouble dealing with even sometimes the harshness of life. And so this can cause prolonged issues. And so I think there can sometimes be a little bit of a connection. Again, they're not always, they're not like always conjunct and one and the same. And it's not like if you have Lilith in Pisces, you're gonna have PTSD and vice versa.
I think that's something that can definitely manifest itself with a lot of Pisces placements, and certainly Lilith in Pisces, is maladaptive daydreaming, which oftentimes does go hand in hand with PTSD. The difference is that the symptoms of PTSD, of getting outside of your sense of reality and experiencing things, sights, sounds, smells even, that aren't there, is sort of an unpleasant symptom of it. Whereas maladaptive daydreaming is a coping mechanism, usually for trauma, in which you, if you don't know what it is, in which you choose to escape your reality and come up with fantastical illusions or ideas of what life could be if you lived this place or were dating this person. And it definitely can show up with Lilith and Pisces because that can be a really enjoyable coping mechanism and can be a really addictive coping mechanism even, because it is so comforting to get yourself out of reality. There's definitely a lot of heavy undertones to Lilith and Pisces.
Also with Pisces energy in general, there's always that like empathetic, feeling other people's emotions, of everybody else's emotions and yours kind of becoming one. And with Lilith and Pisces, because this can take more of a selfish turn, I think that they can get a lot of times caught up with, absorbing other people's feelings and situations so much that they then become the ones that need to be coddled instead of them coddling the people that are going through this. And as much as they're trying to always empathize, they can almost over empathize and then become blind to their own suffering through putting themselves so much in like the other person's shoes, or just not really being able to have boundaries like that they can always be the one that needs that emotional support, and they can have a lot of problems giving emotional support. Obviously Lilith and Pisces does have a lot of trouble with boundaries and putting up healthy boundaries, and people can really also manipulate that and use that to their advantage as well. And even sometimes you might manipulate and use to your advantage the fact that you don't have boundaries either, which I know sounds weird, but this is definitely somebody who can play the victim card and manipulate it and use it to their advantage to kind of get what they want. Because at the end of the day, like, I think if we're just taking the Lilith and Pisces alone, completely absolved of the rest of the chart, what Lilith and Pisces wants is to be taken care of, doesn't want to deal with anything, doesn't really want to do anything, just kind of wants to lay in bed all day and have somebody else or something else take care of all of these adult problems and responsibilities and be kind of absolved of that.
The way that Lilith even interprets the sign of Pisces and how it can come across in the native is that you feel other people's emotions, you feel their burdens, or rather interpret their emotions as burdens is kind of what I'm getting at. You feel their feelings, and then you can feel resentment for them putting that on you. And like Shaina said, then you become the one who needs emotional support. You become the one who needs to be coddled. Instead of kind of like putting your ego aside because Lilith is making it all about her, the fact that you are at the effect of other people's emotions, the fact that you are so open and receptive, then becomes fuel for you feeling like a victim to other people, you feeling helpless to the energies of other people, instead of trying to connect intimately and spiritually with other people. And I think especially because the exile of Lilith and Pisces keeps you from having had that experience of someone fully empathizing with your emotions and you feeling like you had to deal with your subconscious messages, potentially your trauma on your own. So because you learned that you're alone with this energy, when other people put this energy on you, it's not natural for you to give empathy back, because your thought process can be, I've had to deal with this alone all my life, and now you're giving me more stuff to deal with, and you should be dealing with it on your own. And so of course you're gonna find yourself feeling more like a victim when no one has shown you the power that the Pisces archetype has to offer for you of empathy and givingness and synthesis. I think even that when someone else is displaying or quote unquote burdening you with their emotions, with their issues, you might feel the need to perform your trauma, to perform how much it's affecting you, to make it so that you're the one who's more affected, and even diminish their power, their feelings, because you suddenly become so affected by it and it becomes all about you. Because that's what Lilith wants to do, make it all about her. And Lilith has a lot to do with hierarchy. So it's like the hierarchy of suffering.
Yeah.
And Lilith in Pisces wants to be on top.
I agree. Like, I think this is a placement that really wants to be pitied because they realize the power in being pitied. You know what I mean? And you can kind of get what you want. You're treated nicer. You don't have to deal with things. People get things for you. People do things for you if you are the one being pitied.
And ultimately, then you're not responsible for your own life.
Yeah. Going off of that, another way that Pisces Lilith can be manipulative, because all Lilith signs are manipulative in their own special, unique flavor, is that Pisces Lilith can really have extreme delusions. I mean, it makes sense with everything we've been talking about, and it's a lot easier for them to live in their fantasies than in reality. And sometimes they can really believe their fantasies so much and live in that so much that they can really convince themselves that they're not lying to you, that they're not deceiving you, that they're not hiding their true intentions. They can just really convince themselves, I think more than any other Lilith sign, Pisces can really convince themselves that what they're doing is not wrong and believe that wholeheartedly and go about doing it feeling like they're in the right because they're so just not living in what's really going on. You know, they can really hide their true intentions very easily and very well to deceive and even charm you sometimes to get what they want. And also, we've been talking a lot in the past few videos, or at least some of the past few videos, about like that line between romanticization and validation. With Pisces Lilith, I think we push the validation part to the side, and it is strictly romanticization. Romanticization of, like, you know, being addicted to drugs, of, you know, living in that kind of Pisces hole, you know, of that rock star, or like of love, or of whatever it may be.
I think what you're looking for is romanticization of anything addictively destructive. Kind of romanticization of indulgence, indulging in your whims, indulging in your desires. And what else does Lilith and Pisces have in common with, just separately? Both are nonsensical. We always say this in all of our videos. And what Lilith and Pisces can do is, again, put you at the center of the universe. Not at the center of the universe as, like, we often say Leo is at the center of the universe because the sun is at the center of the universe. When Leo's at the center of the universe, it's because Leo is the main character and Leo is doing badass main character bitch stuff, right? Lilith and Pisces can feel at the center of the universe more so because they're at the effect of the universe. And so they're not in control. They're just the victim to everything happening around them. And then how do you fight with that sensically and say, like, hey, you're not in the right? when Lilith in Pisces says, but I feel this way. I feel this way. I feel victimized. I feel like you're doing something wrong. Yes, it's out of my control. And so that's sort of like where the manipulation can come from. And I think something that can be frustrating about dealing with a Lilith in Pisces is not being able to snap them out of something. You know, have them help themselves, have them do what's healthy for them, or even convince them that you're on their side because you want the best for them when they don't even believe that they're capable of doing anything for their own well-being sometimes. They want the glitter without the cleanup.
Yeah, yes, that's really funny. I think that Lilith in Pisces will obsessively look for external signs their whole life to validate any decision. Like, it's almost like nothing can come from themselves or else it feels invalid. Like, these are kind of the textbook people that are like, oh, I'm seeing 444 everywhere, and they don't even know what any number means, but they're just like, that must mean that I'm doing something right, and it must mean that now I'm validated. Or like, if somebody texts you at like 3:33 a.m., you're like, oh, that's a sign that I should be with this person. I wasn't sure, but now I know. Instead of just asking yourself, do I want to be with this person? And it can be hard to just validate yourself and validate your own decisions enough. You always are looking for something external. And when you're looking for something external, sometimes those things can really manipulate you and can really use that vulnerability that you have, especially if it's another person. I don't know, I just think it's a really susceptible energy. You know, we've talked a lot of some negative stuff, but I do say that Pisces Liliths can be super creative and super artistic, and if they really harness this energy, they can produce great works of art, because sometimes the Pisces Lilith can, you know, really only channel all the stuff, like the painful stuff and the positive stuff. It can only be best captured through pictures or songs or poetry or things of that nature. So these are some of the most artistic and creative people out there. So yeah, I just feel like we've been, you know, as we do in these Lilith videos, we harp on the Lilith sign a lot because it's the nature of Lilith.
But the thing is also, Lilith isn't the most prominent thing in anybody's chart. If you just dip your toe in, if that's possible, to just dip your toe in a little bit, you can learn to wallow a little bit in yourself, to deal with your own grief, to deal with your own trauma, to give yourself space to breathe, to, you know, indulge in your imagination and your creativity.
You know, Pisces rules the subconscious, and Lilith is a very dark energy. So these things combined can create a very harsh, dark subconscious mind, a lot of dark thoughts that you can just dive down and obsess over, obsessive thinking even, you know, or what's like even possibly like maybe intrusive thoughts can come from this energy. Also, I'm thinking like really dark dreams that haunt you or carry on throughout your life. I think this is definitely a placement that can deal with having trouble falling asleep and having trouble waking up, like struggles with going in between the two worlds seamlessly. Like if you, once you fall asleep, you can like sleep forever and sleep until 3 p.m. and struggle to get up, but then you might have trouble falling asleep and deal with insomnia. And also maybe you'll take pills to deal with that insomnia. But because Lilith is nonsensical, your response to those medications don't make any sense with the response that you should have. So you might take an insomnia medication, and instead of falling asleep and being so tired, you're even up more and wired, and you can just have really just almost like feeling like you have wrong responses to drugs, like having very different responses to drugs than other people have. It can also make it harder for professionals to diagnose your problems and properly treat it, because you can just respond so differently and so nonsensically to other people to the exact same thing. So it can be really hard to get that stuff under control.
Yeah, another reason that it can be difficult to just seek help in general, so much of being treated for anything does have to do with your willingness to participate. All too often, Lilith in Pisces has the reaction of being content with their destructive habits, their addictions. And so if you're not willing to be treated, even if you're forced into a rehab or forced into some sort of treatment, you might just not get anything out of it because mentally and subconsciously you're not willing to be there. You're not willing or wanting to take that treatment.
And sometimes it can be as harsh as, like, if you get better, then you have life's responsibilities coming at you, and you have to take responsibility for maybe the fact that you've put your career or something more physical, you know, on the back burner. And so, you know, instead of being like, oh, I've been sick, so I haven't been able to work, you can't use that as an excuse anymore. So sometimes there might not be a want to get better and to deal with life stuff. Possibly even more of that thing of like, yeah, this is bad, but this is the bad I know kind of situation, where that's that comfort zone in a weird way.
Better the devil you know than the devil you don't.
Also in sex, there can be a definite sexually submissive side, or I would say more like a martyr in sex, because, you know, a Pisces Lilith can kind of have this vibe where it's not spoken, but it can kind of feel like a Pisces Lilith can give you all the sexual fantasies that you want, can make them real. Pisces Lilith will really want to kind of give themselves over and become that for you. And like that idea of just like pleasing you sexually beyond your wildest dreams, or like I said, like manifest those fantasies into reality. And so sometimes Pisces Lilith might have some trouble knowing what they want or having their own fantasies because they're always just trying to appease the other person's possibly. You know, and they also do, you know, have trouble making decisions for themselves and stuff, and this can go into sex as well. You definitely are very highly romanticized, and people can very much romanticize you and glamorize you, and you can definitely use that to your advantage and manipulate the situation because of that, and you might not even realize you're doing that. Or again, you can be like, well, they romanticized me, I never said that I was this way, they just put that on me, you know? And they did just put that on you, but you can also kind of secretly, knowingly go along with it in a way. And also there's a big sexual naivety, or at least a vibe. You might not actually be sexually naive, but you might have a vibe of that, and people can kind of like that idea of like, you know, it's gross. Ugh, you can take advantage of her, like that's hot, you know. You know, even like a Lolita vibe or something like that. And honestly, because you put love on such a ridiculously high pedestal and you romanticize it and don't want to deal with the realities of love, disappointment in love and sex is kind of inevitable in this placement, unfortunately, to some degree, because love isn't always going to be sunshine, cupcakes, and rainbows. There are always going to be issues within a relationship that a Pisces Lilith doesn't really want to deal with. Like, they want to love somebody as though they're a deity and like praise them. It's that same thing of like wanting to give up control. And if you praise somebody as a deity, you can kind of give up control to them, if that makes sense.
I see lots of Pisces in Joe Goldberg and you, this sort of erotomania, because, you know, Lilith in Pisces is more prone to maladaptive daydreaming. Perhaps the most powerful, most romantic relationships that you experience are ones that you're not even in, ones that you imagine, that you romanticize someone else, and that you imagine yourselves together and how amazing it would be if you were together, and itch for having that person be your person, but never actually have to confront that in reality and have that live in your imagination, in your mind, like, you know, erotomania. You might not enjoy getting close to people in a more intimate way because they can show you their real selves outside of what image that you put on them. So you can find yourself just like sexually promiscuous, sexually risky, also as an indication that you don't care about your body, very Lilith in Pisces, that you feel like you're just at the effect of other people. That feeds into your narrative of what you believe about yourself.
Now let's get into celebrities with Pisces Lilith. So the first person that I'm going to mention, I don't know where you got this birthday, I don't know where you got this birth time, but you know what? It's on Astro theme and it's too perfect to not go with it. But Jesus Christ supposedly has Lilith and Pisces in the 3rd house. And again, I don't know the validity of this, but I even feel like the whole mystery of it all is very Pisces Lilith, you know? The whole fact that it's like, is he even real? Who is he? Is this even his birthday? This is what we think it is, but is there even validity in this? Like, and I mean, he's the ultimate martyr, you know, which is Pisces Lilith. And, you know, there's a lot of tales that, like, didn't he, you know, spend a lot of time with the sick and the ill. People pray to him as a deity and a prophet, and you know, that's something that Pisces Lilith can feel like they want. And I feel like in a weird way, people give Jesus Christ a lot of pity, even, you know? You know, he died for our sins, supposedly. And I feel like that is the ultimate, like, what Pisces Lilith wants to do is, like, take on everybody's everything and then be praised for it, you know? You know, whether or not Jesus Christ is real and whether or not that's his fucking birthday and if he has Lilith and Pisces or not, there are a lot of spiritual leaders that have this Lilith and Pisces. Eckhart Tolle has this, and he is the author of The Power of Now. I haven't read the book. I'm not sure if you have, Nina.
Oh, yeah. The Power of Now is about sort of... how do you even...
It's putting an end to suffering and achieving inner peace. Detach from the ego to reduce the amount of pain you experience.
Yeah, it's an interesting book. I did not have that positive of an experience reading it. It was certainly extremely Piscean. What I found off-putting about The Power of Now was how it lacked any sense of validation, because it was, interestingly, saying that you had all of the power in the world to change your life and to actually physically experience less pain, but sort of in a way that I interpreted as being rather shameful or finger pointy, instead of when you're really trying to empower someone, you want to validate their experience and make them feel not like a victim, because basically, if you say, you know, you're feeling this way because it's your fault, then it's like, wow, I'm a piece of shit, right? And you could change it. Why haven't you changed it yet? You're like, wow, I'm a piece of shit. I guess I'm just a victim. If you tell someone, it makes sense that you would feel this way. It makes sense that given this and that, and anyone who would have gone through this would also feel this way. But did you know that there's a tool that you have the power to access if you want to? That's, you know, a more empowering way to kind of go about that empowerment of a person. But I felt that was lacking in The Power of Now. And that's my book report in the middle of this little thing in Pisces video.
These aren't my words, but a lot of the criticism was that it was condemning all negative emotions, which I think kind of connects to that, like, it's sunshine, butterflies, and rainbows, but you can completely pretend and absolve yourself of reality and pretend it is so.
It talks a lot about physical pain, I would remember. It's basically saying, instead of seeking treatment, instead of empowering yourself to do something about the pain that you're going through, just live in the power of now. And it was also extremely vague. It was like, just live in the power of now. The power of now. Just pretend that there is no past and there is no future. It's just the power of now. And that is very much detaching from reality. And I think that there is a healthy way to detach from logic and sort of like the confines of the world.
We all need a break, you know?
Yeah. But it was a bit extreme, in my opinion, as well, which is very Lilith and Pisces. It was nonsensical. It went to extreme lengths.
Yeah.
And it felt pretty disempowering and unhuman. It lacked a human touch, I felt.
Ram Dass, another spiritual teacher, you know, he's a guru of yoga, he's a psychologist, and I guess he's like, be here now is something that he says, or has a book or something, which is also, you know, the power of now, be here now, now. I also heard that he was raised Jewish and he had a bar mitzvah, but he was disappointed with its essential hollowness, and he quickly considered himself an atheist. And I feel like even that kind of exile from religion, feeling like, okay, now I was bar mitzvah, but what does that mean now? What kind of feeling is very like that exile, Lilith and Pisces. And so Lilith and Pisces. He then said he didn't have another whiff of spirituality until he took psychedelics. And I mean, like, if that's not the most Lilith and Pisces thing, but the thing with, like, at least my viewpoint on psychedelics is, like, it's not going to bring out anything that's not already in you, that's not already there.
Yeah, that's interesting. The be here now, that really is, I mean, it's very vague. I haven't read the book, but it definitely is such a vague statement that could go in one end of the spectrum of Pisces or the other end of the spectrum with Pisces of, like, wow, be here now, find bliss and find empowerment in the moment. Or it can be like, be here now, avoid your responsibilities, be in the moment and don't think about the reality outside of it, you know?
Another spiritual teacher or guru or self-proclaimed prophet and god is Jim Jones. Jim Jones has this in the second house. You probably know him from the drink the Kool-Aid thing. And he used spirituality to manipulate people. He especially used it to manipulate people of an oppressed background. You know, oh, join me, you know, people of color or people of a different sexuality, people that are poor, or something along those lines. He manipulated them and was like, yes, come to me, I love all of you guys, when in reality he was still just exploiting them and using them. Even though he claimed to be this great supporter of people of color, the only people in positions of power were white people, and he was definitely just the exact personification of the white savior. And he was, you know, very delusional of himself and his sexuality. He claimed he wasn't gay, although he would sleep with men all the time. He claimed everybody was gay except for himself. He was also hugely into drugs, hugely dependent on drugs, and that was a lot of where his psychotic choices came from.
Yeah, I mean, that's just so perfect, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
The spiritual manipulation as well. You know, there were people who were brainwashed to drink the Kool-Aid, but even so, he shot people to death who tried to run away. Like,
yeah. So that's hard.
Yeah, I don't really know what else to say.
Let's go into something lighter, I guess. Two of the Beatles have this placement, and they both have it in the 12th house. Ringo Starr and John Lennon have a Pisces Lilith in the 12th house. I mean, we talked about great musical and creative talents. There you go. But also Ringo Starr is known for his peace and love. Peace and love. Like, if that's not so Pisces Lilith. Also, they're known for drugs, especially, you know, indulging in a lot of psychedelics and having completely nonsensical lyrics.
They're a walrus living in a yellow submarine with an octopus's garden, and Lucy's up there in the sky with diamonds. It's like,
yeah. Also, the Beatles were known as big peace activists. And John Lennon has this placement. He died from an assassination, and the person assassinated him, John Lennon, because John Lennon claimed the Beatles were more famous than Jesus, and that made somebody really mad. How Pisces Lilith.
Also, the Imagine song. Yeah. Imagine all of the people living life in peace, and yet in reality was also in a much greater hierarchy than that song or those ideals would suggest, of everyone being in peace. He was a self-proclaimed more famous than Jesus. Yeah. So that really takes away from the idea that all people are equal and can live in harmony when you think that you're more famous than a religious deity.
We just talked about a lot of really, like, spiritual, godlike, you know, entities or whatever, or to see themselves as such. But also, you know, as I mentioned earlier, this can go into, like, the pop punk princess thing, because Avril Lavigne and Ashley Simpson both have this. I didn't know this, but they were born, like, a week apart. Crazy. all of their songs and their music videos and the way they dress is very like hot, disheveled, like what's going on. But like if you look at like Ashlee Simpson's music videos, and I'll insert clips of it, but she's like by the laundromat, like doing daily things. It's just those punks outside the laundromat, oh, you know, ditching school, like those very kind of like bringing that Pisces more to just your everyday kind of thing. Also, Ashlee Simpson's albums are called like I Am Me and Autobiography, and I think it's interesting. I feel like it's almost like an overcompensation, like she doesn't know who the fuck she is.
Well, consider the fact that she is Jessica Simpson's sister, you know, the shadow that she has to live in. You know, I Am Me is probably like, I am me, I'm not a Jessica Simpson's sister. Exactly. I'm my own person. And she is known for having a lot of makeover transformations. So it's like, again, a lack of security with your own self-image, with your own sense of self. Even Avril Lavigne has that, to the point that people were convinced, surely she's a different person now. Oh, surely that's not Avril Lavigne anymore.
I forgot about that silly conspiracy. Two of the biggest rock and roll legends have Lilith and Pisces both in the 4th house. Ozzy Osbourne and Sid Vicious have this. You know, Ozzy Osbourne is known for his addiction to drugs as well as being a rock legend. Also, he used a lot of religious symbolism in music, but he's, you know, he outright says that he exploits religion because people like to be scared, and so he used that idea for his own fame, even though he doesn't really have this connection to religion. And then also Sid Vicious of the Sex Pistols has this, also known for his addiction, his drug addiction as well. He is the voice of that messy punk scene, you know, the underground stuff that is Pisces Lilith. Also, he murdered his girlfriend in a drunken stupor, and he is quoted saying, "I stabbed her, but I never meant to kill her. She fell on my knife." Which, if that's not the most Pisces Lilith, like, oh yeah, I stabbed her, but I didn't mean to kill her, like not living in reality, like just totally disconnected from their actions, like, oh my god.
And not assuming responsibility, but not even in a smart way. Yeah. Not even in like an O.J. Simpson way, but in like a, she fell on my knife.
Like, oh my god, I never meant to kill her. This is horrible for me. You know? And he also died of Quaaludes and heroin. Very Pisces Lilith. Somebody else that has this, Johnny Cash, has this in the 1st house, and he's a Pisces rising. I literally refer to him as the sad guy. I can never remember his name, but I know that he's super sad, and he sings sad songs with a sad voice. His songs are of sorrow, heartbreak, life versus death. He also drank and abused drugs heavily, common theme here. Like, his image was that of like a romanticized outlaw, like, but in reality, he never really even lived the life of an outlaw. He just, you know, put out that image. He also had a rediscovery of his Christian faith.
The only song that I know of him is Boy Named Sue, which is basically all about like, damn, my life sucks, and it's all somebody else's fault.
I feel like Johnny Cash is like an older generation Pisces Lilith in the 1st house. The newer generation, the Gen Z generation of Pisces Lilith in the 1st house, I think is perfectly displayed in Billie Eilish. You know, she has that kind of surface level, like, dark girl image. She very obviously made that, like, classic Pisces switch of like one Pisces image to the other. Like, she had that dark hair and the dark image, and now she has that like light ethereal Pisces image. Also, literally one of her album covers was like a bad dream, and it's called When We Fall Asleep, Where Do We Go? If that's not like surface level Pisces Lilith shit, I don't know what the fuck is.
Yeah, and something that's been prevalent with Billie Eilish is her body. Because before she was 18, she wouldn't show her body, you know, probably showing a discomfort in her body, and even not wanting to, knowing as a Pisces rising, Pisces Lilith, not wanting people to idealize her and sort of make comments about her and have their own perception of her that she like wasn't in control of. Or like Demi Lovato is another example of someone with Lilith and Pisces who suffered from other people having opinions of her and her body, which can be really difficult when Lilith in Pisces already has sort of a shaky self-perception sometimes. Yeah. So it would be natural to want to like hide yourself away to a point so that you don't get that input on something that you're not confident in.
Another person that has this placement is Chance the Rapper. He now defines himself as a Christian rapper, but what was his breakthrough album called? Acid Rap. One of his most recent albums was strictly just about his wife and his marriage, and it was called The Big Day. Like, that's so Pisces Lilith to go from like acid rap to my marriage and my love and my wife. Somebody else, again, like Chance the Rapper, musical talent, natural musical talent, it's a common theme, all right? Another person, Andrew Lloyd Webber, he writes musicals, and I would just like to point out that two of the musicals that he wrote are Jesus Christ Superstar and Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, two religiously based musicals, you know?
He also wrote Cats, which makes no sense. It's gibberish.
It is.
If I understood it correctly, it's a talent show to compete for an afterlife. Very spiritual.
Yeah, it is. Another person who has this is Leonardo DiCaprio, but he has this in the 6th house, which I feel like gives it some more structure. But I mean, who was more romanticized and like almost like fetishized and almost like worshipped as a deity when he was young? Like, he literally played Romeo in Romeo and Juliet, a super Pisces and Pisces Lilith story. Come on! He was in Inception, all about time and blah, 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 blah. Even being in The Great Gatsby, I feel like that romanticization of wealth and all that stuff. You know, and just the fact that he's an actor. He transforms with a role, and he's known for that. Is very Pisces Lilith. In the 6th house of work.
In the Titanic, he gave up his life. He gave up his life. He was a martyr.
Yeah.
He is such a talented actor because he is so willing to kind of transform himself to go there, including in the role that finally won him the Oscar. But The Revenant, he went out there. He lived that Revenant life.
While they were filming that, they lost touch with reality so much that like everybody quit, everybody hated it. They were really dealing with those circumstances, like what is real and what is for this movie. The line was definitely, and the boundaries were definitely crossed. Mm-hmm. Speaking kind of in the same vein of being like a transformative actor is Helena Bonham Carter. She completely changes depending on her roles. I mean, it makes sense. She's also a Gemini sun. But I mean, in the way that she dresses, she is messy top bun master. The way that she dresses is so Pisces Lilith, that like disheveled, confused, but like put together seamlessly in a way is, I feel like, very Pisces Lilith. The last person that I'm going to talk about is Lauryn Hill. She's a famous female rap artist. I think she is incredibly talented. Also a musician. Again, there's a lot of artistic and musical talents in here. She's also a huge peace advocate. You know, she was in the Fugees and then she had her own album, but then she kind of just dropped off the face of the earth. I always wondered what happened, and she actually had a self-imposed exile from fame. And I read about it, and it was because it began to overwhelm her, and she didn't like that she couldn't go outside of her house. She didn't like crowds. She didn't like that she could be invisible, which is something that a Pisces Lilith might have trouble doing. Like, just being so seen is something that a Pisces Lilith can have a lot of trouble with. And in this self-imposed exile from fame, she completely retreated into religion. And it says that she studied her Bible 5 days a week, and she became just completely connected to this spiritual advisor that a lot of people said was less of a spiritual advisor and more acted like a cult leader, which is just such a Pisces Lilith storyline, I guess. That wraps up our Pisces Lilith video. Next up is the final Lilith video in the series, Lilith in the 12th house. So you probably most definitely almost have another Lilith video out there of yours to watch, or if you want to understand the downfalls of your arch enemy or foe, no, I'm kidding. You can look up theirs.
There's plenty of reasons to check out the other videos, and there's plenty of reasons to check out the description, including if you are interested in checking out my channel. Nina is my name.
Shayna's channel. Shaina is her name. Runaway Germ is her name. Astro Freak. All of that stuff is in the description. Readings from us, you can check that out in the description. Different social medias, Instagram, TikTok, all of that good stuff.
Thank you so much for staying throughout this long-winded Lilith podcast video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.
Bye.